Welcome to this Finding Housing workshop offered by CVOEO's Vermont Tenants program. Vermont Tenants offers classes, housing advocacy at the local and state level, and a statewide hotline. Please feel free to call our hotline at any time while renting, or if you'd like a lease review prior to renting. 802-864-0099. You can find additional workshops at www.cvoeo.org/learn/renters-workshops. This workshop is organized in 3 sections. The first, Approach a Housing Search, includes understanding how you want to tell your story, how to establish a positive landlord relationship, and how to address barriers. In the second, Conduct a Housing Search, we'll review how to develop application materials, know where to look, and negotiate a lease. And lastly, in navigating your fair housing rights, we'll focus on understanding fair housing protections, knowing what to do if you face discrimination, and how to access disability rights. Before we start today, I want to talk about why this workshop is so important. Vermont, like most of the country, is in the middle of a serious housing crisis, and this means that it can be very hard to find safe, stable, and affordable housing here. The vacancy rate is how many apartments out of 100 are, on average, open and available to be rented at a given time. This number fluctuates across the state, but is well below what is generally considered healthy, which is in the 3 to 5% range. The most recent average in Chittenden County was 2%. But it is 0% in apartments with 3 or more bedrooms and in affordable housing. That means you either have to get very lucky or be on a wait list to get into this kind of housing. 2 factors contribute to affordability: housing cost and your ability to pay that cost. When supply is low, demand rises and housing costs go up. Fair market rate is the rent set by the market. In other words, as much as the landlord can charge and still find renters. Many people do not earn enough to pay fair market rent with 30% of their income and either pay more than 30% or apply for subsidized housing. Subsidized housing can come from federal, state, or local sources and generally requires folks to pay 30% of their gross income, not take-home pay, and the subsidy covers the rest. Note that as a percentage of take-home pay, in reality, affordable can be more than 30%. Subsidized housing is sometimes called Section 8 housing. Subsidized housing is either site-specific, if you move, you lose your subsidy, or tenant-specific. You can use your subsidy to rent from private landlords and take it with you if you move. Subsidies are often referred to as vouchers. As you can imagine, subsidized housing is in high demand, and most sites or voucher providers have a wait list. If you apply and get on a wait list, it's important to update your application information as your circumstances change over time. You don't want to miss an opportunity when a unit becomes available. You must be financially eligible, low income, to qualify for subsidized housing. Checking the application guidelines or meeting with a specific subsidized housing provider is the only sure way to determine if you qualify. If you qualify for a tenant-specific Section 8 subsidy or voucher, you are able to look for housing from private landlords. Just as there are income limits for subsidized housing, there are also rent limits, and the property has to pass a housing inspection to ensure the property meets minimum safety and health standards. The next section focuses on how to approach a housing search. We'll start with an example from a Vermont tenant. While she was a student and for some years after, Corinne had trouble securing a rental apartment. She had poor credit due to family circumstances, moved often, and lived in situations without a formal lease. This meant she was unable to build up a good landlord reference, often a key application item that a housing provider looks for. What are some options for someone in Corinne's situation? Take a minute to review the list of Corinne's choices. Ask someone to co-sign a lease, take personal finance classes, create a budget to show landlords, connect with a financial coach, rebuild credit by using a secured credit card, ask a friend for a reference, try talking to landlords about her situation, build a network of support. What do you think would be most helpful? We'll discuss these options later when we talk about overcoming barriers to finding housing. Landlords and property managers will be looking to you to understand who you are. The information you provide, how you speak with them on the phone, how you interact with them in meetings are all in your control. You have choices, as Corinne's example showed. Take a moment to think about past experiences that may affect your housing search. You may want to grab a sheet of paper and draw a line down the center. Label one side experience and the other response. For each experience, list a key phrase or two you might use in conversation with a potential landlord. It's likely your key phrases focused on the positive. The next few slides explore positive framing and provide more examples. Positive framing can help you change your outlook, change your energy, and help you see opportunities ahead. For example, if you have a criminal record, you might think of phrases such as, I made a mistake. It is not something that will happen again, and I completed an anger management class that has helped me deal with conflict differently. Or, I am no longer using drugs and have support networks in place to make sure I don't in future. Here's another example. You moved because the landlord harassed you. You might start with saying, there were some problems communicating with my last landlord. I prefer that this be a professional relationship and to have a signed lease with clear expectations. It's not a good idea to disrespect a former landlord. Vermont is a small place and landlords talk. In an example from the hotline, a woman rented from a friend of her parents with no formal lease. Though she always paid rent and found new roommates when someone moved out, her older male landlord continually harassed her and disputed the terms of their verbal agreement. She was able to ask for a simple reference stating she paid the rent on time, and he agreed to that. If you have a past eviction, keep it simple, such as, I hit a hard financial time, got behind on rent, and didn't know where to turn for help. My finances are stable now. I have a written budget this apartment fits into, and I know I can call the local community action agency for resources to help pay back rent. Tenant-landlord law can be both specific and general, and it is self-enforced. A decent working relationship between tenant and landlord helps if there are misunderstandings, disagreements, or disputes of any kind. What do landlords want? First, the rent paid on time. Some, though not all, landlords use a credit score as an indication of someone's ability to reliably pay rent. Second, good communication. This means promptly requesting repairs, notifying a landlord early if you will not be able to pay rent, and responding to a request for an inspection or scheduling for a repair. Third, a responsible tenant. This includes getting along with the neighbors, abiding by rules such as no smoking, and following all the terms of the lease. Fourth, respect for their property. Property damage can be felt personally, almost like a personal attack, especially if the landlord has built or maintains the property themselves. Other things that can help include supports in the community, such as a recovery coach, financial coach, or connection to social services. This can be helpful for folks facing specific barriers to finding housing. Also, providing a full financial picture, such as a budget, and showing what has changed if coming from an unsuccessful rental experience. Barriers to finding housing include finding transportation to view a rental, needing to take time off from work to go view places, pets, availability, and much more. In the next few slides, we'll dive into a few barriers that come up often for folks. When rental housing is scarce and a lot of people are looking for housing, landlords can afford to be choosy. We'll explore a variety of barriers to finding housing, but the approach to overcoming each barrier is the same. Think outside of the box. If you don't check an application box in a typical way, how else can you meet the requirement? Show what's different now. If you've had challenges in past rental experiences, how can you show you will now succeed? Use community resources. Who do you know that might help you? What are your challenges and your strengths? What's changed from your past? Who do you know in your community? Barriers to finding housing include being a first-time renter. You have no rental history or references. Bad credit or no credit. A history of criminal, violent, or drug convictions. Bad landlord references. Unprofessional social media, or not enough money for security deposit or rent. We'll discuss these in more depth, but you may want to take a minute to think about possible options for addressing these challenges. Pets are often cited as a top barrier to finding housing. While some landlords are flexible around pets, some have a no pets policy or have strict policies on pet management. Under fair housing law, assistance animals are not considered pets and different rules apply. Some standard expectations for pets in rental housing include the following. 1. Plan for an extra security deposit or pet deposit on top of the basic security deposit. In Burlington and Brattleboro, landlords can charge only 1/2 of 1 month's rent as a pet deposit. A pet deposit, like all deposits, is fully refundable if the pet causes no damages. Property owners cannot charge an extra deposit for assistance animals. 2. Provide proof of vaccinations, especially for rabies. 3. Landlords can prohibit certain breeds of pets, but not assistance animals, based on their property insurance coverage. Some property insurance policies do not cover certain breeds of animals based on bodily injuries and property damage claims statistics. Landlords cannot prohibit assistance animals for a person with disabilities. We'll go over information on requesting accommodations from a no pet policy for emotional support animals and service animals, together called assistance animals, later in the workshop. Here are some extra tips to consider to improve your chances of finding housing with your pet. Purchase renter's insurance that includes liability for pets. Consider having your pet spayed or neutered. Take your dog to dog training classes and show the landlord copies of any certificates received. Take pictures and document the condition of the rental before moving in, especially floors. Even if an ad says no pets, call anyway. Some landlords are flexible if they meet your pet or know that you have taken some of these steps. Why do landlords ask for a past landlord reference? Because they want a report from someone with direct experience with you as a renter to assure you will be responsible and pay rent on time, take care of the place, and get along with the neighbors. A landlord reference is a character and financial reference. If you've never rented before, who do you know who could speak to your financial abilities, level of responsibility, and communication skills? Consider your employer or teacher, your neighbor, a religious leader, a friend, or a counselor. For example, a trusted friend you've known for a while may have been in your previous homes and could speak to your excellent housekeeping. An employer can assure a landlord that you have steady income and are reliable. While landlords cannot charge an application fee, they commonly charge a fee to run a credit check. If a potential landlord asks for permission to run a credit check, immediately ask them to put in writing for you what they consider an acceptable credit score and the factors on the report that they look at. Sometimes landlords reject applicants based on unfair expectations, such as family size, a Section 8 voucher, or a disability, and use credit as an excuse. If your housing application has been denied based on credit, you must be notified and given the name, address, and phone number of the agency that provided the credit information. Sometimes landlords will tell you what they saw on your credit report that led to the decision, which shows you the areas you need to focus on to improve your credit. You have a right to access a copy of the credit report they see. You can go to www.annualcreditreport.com to view the credit report for free and securely from the bureau that the landlord used, which will be either TransUnion, Experian, or Equifax. Some landlords may make decisions based on score, but some make decisions based on other factors in a credit report. Typically, they want to see that you have no collections from unpaid rent to other landlords, or no collections from unpaid utility bills, as those two things have the greatest potential effect on their property. Keep in mind, not all landlords check credit. There are resources to help you repair or build your credit. Remember Corinne's choices. A criminal record can be a difficult challenge to overcome. It is not illegal for landlords to deny housing based on a criminal background. Some landlords conduct background checks, but not all. Think of the 3 overall strategies. Think outside the box. Be straightforward and take responsibility. Landlords are looking for direct communication and responsibility. The more you take ownership, the more they will trust you. Consider planning your introductory conversation or cover letter carefully to share the short version of your past. Show what's different now. Counseling, treatment, and a clean record since the conviction can help. If you have done those things, document them and add to your conversation, cover letter, or application. Use community resources. Landlords who are flexible about a criminal background report that it's helpful if they know that the applicant has connections in the community in case they struggle, such as a relapse. If you have current connections to a drug counselor, financial coach, or restorative justice center, such as a COSA team, consider letting the landlord know this. Also, find out if your record can be expunged by contacting Vermont Legal Aid. People who have a criminal record as a result of an addiction can ask for an accommodation to an application policy that outright denies people for a criminal record under fair housing protections for people with disabilities. This would allow a landlord to reconsider their case. Unfavorable landlord references. Possible reasons for a bad reference include evictions, non-payment of rent, damages, neighbor problems, letting other people live with you, lease violations. What might be some strategies for moving beyond a bad landlord reference? It may be tempting to leave that landlord off the list. However, if you leave off a landlord and the housing agency or subsidized landlord finds out about that landlord, you may be denied housing based on fraud or failure to provide complete information on your housing application. First, try talking to your past landlord. Ask them to provide a simple reference that focuses on what you did well, like says you paid the rent on time. Next, show circumstances have changed. For example, a medical or financial problem that caused you to get behind in your rent that has been resolved. Disturbances in your apartment happened because of abuse you were facing. Gather statements of counselors who knew about your situation, police reports, or restraining orders. You have given away a pet that you had in violation of a no pet rule. Or you are now receiving social services which will enable you to comply with your lease. Landlords will Google your name and check social media, along with credit and background checks. Google yourself and check out your social media to see what a potential landlord will see. Examples from landlords that raise concerns include references to, quote, partying hard and aggressive language. Both can be perceived as indicators of potential neighbor complaints, noise or parking issues, or property damage. And don't forget to Google your landlord too, as well as check local social media renters pages. If you don't have enough money for the first month's rent or security deposit, contact your local community action agency. There are federal and state-funded programs to help eligible folks with these costs. Which agency is near you? Often, community action agencies run food shelves, free tax preparation programs, and more. Next, we'll discuss how to conduct an organized housing search. When filling out housing applications, having all the required info in one place can be helpful. The following information is typically needed: income of all household members, rental history, income, assets, and credit history, and your references. You can keep this information in a note on your phone, in an envelope or folder, or on a single piece of paper in the form of a housing resume, whatever works for you. Make a plan for introducing yourself to your potential landlord. This can be over the phone, an in-person meeting, or in writing, whichever works best for you. No matter how you communicate, you will want to summarize your background, highlight your strengths as a tenant, and explain how you've moved forward from past difficulties. Places you can look include online websites such as Craigslist, HotPads, Trulia, Zillow, Apartments.com, Rent.com, or ForRent.com. Newspaper classified ads, Facebook Marketplace and local renters groups, bulletin boards, Home Share Vermont, public housing authorities, nonprofit housing providers, and you can use the Affordable Rental Housing Database by Vermont Housing Finance Agency. This is searchable by location, type, and amenities, and is found at www.housingdata.org/find-rental-housing. Here are some steps to help protect you from falling victim to a scam. First, create a new email account to use just for your housing search. This can help you stay organized and prevent scammers from clogging your personal inbox with messages. Never send money in advance. Application fees are illegal in Vermont, and security deposits are paid at the time of signing a lease. Deposits to, quote, hold or save a property are very likely scams. You can also use Google Maps and call the town office to confirm who owns the property. Use Google Maps to be sure the address provided is a real address and the picture matches the one in the ad. Keep in mind, scammers use real addresses and real pictures for fake rentals, so it's best to also call the town office and ask who owns the property and if it is a rental. If in Burlington, use the Burlington Property Database. You can search by address and see whether the property is a rental, the number of units, who the owner is, and the Certificate of Compliance, or COC, rating. A 1 is poor and a 5 is excellent. The database can be found at https://property.burlingtonvt.gov/. Avoid communication that has poor grammar and no contact name. Avoid clickable links and never submit information from a link in an email. Property managers and landlords begin making their decision about you as a tenant from the first phone call. Many folks feel anxious about making a first phone call to someone they don't know or have trouble remembering the questions they want to ask. It may help to practice what you're going to say, to write down the questions you want to ask, to track your calls and viewings on paper. Keep it simple and short and use a script. Meeting a landlord to view a property is an opportunity to assess both the property and the landlord to see if both are a match for your needs. Here are some tips to help you prepare and leave a favorable impression. First, keep it professional, friendly, but businesslike. Write down your questions or concerns ahead of time. For example, if your income arrives on the 3rd of the month, you will want to ask if the landlord is flexible about the date rent is due. Bring along information that will help you fill out an application. Past addresses and landlord contact info, income for all household members and a budget if you have one, employer contact, bank account info, social security numbers for all household members, for example. Be mindful of the property. Wipe your feet on the mat or offer to take off your shoes. Make sure they remember you when you leave. Leave an introductory cover letter if you have one. Things to look out for in the apartment. Check that all essential systems work properly. Lights, vents, water outlets, stove, toilets, hardwired and interconnected smoke and carbon monoxide detectors, locking doors, windows that open. Ask the landlord if there has been an infestation of bed bugs in the building. Look into nooks and crannies with a flashlight or phone light, baseboards, closets, cupboards, undercushions or mattresses, and box springs if renting a furnished apartment. Also look for mouse droppings, wood that has been chewed on, or scratch marks that may indicate a rodent infestation. Check ceilings, around windows, under sinks, toilets, and showers. Evidence of water stains could mean a plumbing, heating, or roof problem. Mold needs moisture to grow. Check out bathrooms in particular, and be sure the bathroom is well ventilated. Check the vent switch or that an outside window opens. Less obvious but also common, mold can grow on the interior of outside walls if the insulation is poor. All infestations and repairs, including mold issues, should be fixed before you move in. Take pictures and make a list of needed repairs. Make a copy for your landlord and one for yourself. Ask the landlord to put in writing the date repairs will be complete. While tenant-landlord law does include a process for ensuring a landlord fixes major rental housing code violations, such as bed bugs or mold, the process can be a hassle if you are already moved in. If you are offered a lease with conditions that will be hard for you to meet, try talking to the landlord to see if they are flexible on those. You and the landlord can look for a win-win agreement. Here are some tips. Rent payment schedule. If you get paid every other week, bi-weekly, and know it will be hard to manage your money for one large rent payment on the 1st of the month, ask your landlord if they are willing to split the rent into bi-weekly payments. Allowing an automatic payment from your bank account can help. Fixed-term lease that rolls into a month-to-month after 1 year. If you'd like a fixed-term lease, say 1 year, with the opportunity to renew the lease year by year after the first year, ask the landlord if they'd be open to those conditions. No pets. Ask the landlord if they are open to meeting your pet, and if so, ask for an addendum or additional term to be added to the lease allowing for your pet. Also, if your pet is a service or support animal, you can ask for a reasonable accommodation from the no pet policy. No smoking. All HUD subsidized properties are non-smoking, and smoking will not be negotiable. For places that have an outdoor smoking area, consider if this will work for you. Smoking can be a major cause for neighbor disputes and lead to a poor landlord reference. Consider this carefully. Overall, a lease can be rewritten, addendums added, or a term changed and initialed if both parties agree. Next, we'll review how to navigate your fair housing rights. Fair housing is the right to equal opportunity in housing choice and the right to rent, buy, or finance a dwelling free from discrimination. Fair housing is important because where you live determines where your children go to school, the ease of getting to work, healthcare, and recreation, what kind of physical danger you may be exposed to, or a positive physical environment. Having enough quality, affordable housing is good for the community, and it ensures it is a good place for future businesses to locate, promotes economic growth and welfare for all, and builds community connections and support. Fair housing laws apply to most residential dwellings and all advertising and statements. There are a few exemptions. These include owner-occupied triplex duplexes, or just a duplex in Burlington, religious housing, senior housing, rental units which would be too small for the family desiring to live there based on applicable occupancy standards, not landlord perceptions. Discrimination in housing based on membership in the following protected classes is federally prohibited in all of the U.S. Disability, race, sex, color, national origin, religion, and family status, meaning whether you have children. In the search for housing, particularly in a tight rental market, you may face discrimination. Federal and state laws protect renters and those looking to buy a home from many kinds of discrimination. Housing discrimination has been a serious problem for the entire history of our country, and it continues today. It is also severely underreported. The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development estimates that more than 2 million instances of housing discrimination occur each year, but fewer than 1% are reported. Many people are unaware that they have been victims of housing discrimination. Testing performed by the Housing Discrimination Law Project of Vermont Legal Aid shows that housing providers generally disfavor African American renters, renters of foreign origin, renters with children, and renters with disabilities. Accessibility audits on newly constructed multifamily housing units indicated that as many as 70% had minor issues with compliance and another 10% had significant compliance issues. Just over half of the housing complaints received by the Human Rights Commission in Vermont are on the basis of disability, followed by familial status, then race and color. Several complaints allege discrimination on multiple areas. Similarly, with Vermont Legal Aid, 68% of complaints are related to disability and reasonable accommodation, followed by discrimination against African Americans, including immigrants, 16%, and minor children, 12%. Additionally, Vermonters have extra protections based on citizenship, immigration status, whether they receive public assistance, such as 3 squares or a Section 8 voucher, gender identity or sexual orientation, whether they are married or not, their age, and if they are victims of abuse, sexual assault, or stalking. Here's an example regarding family status. Housing can't be denied, nor can different rules or terms be applied due to the presence of minor children. Families cannot be steered away from or towards certain units or properties. Reasonable occupancy standards apply, however. As a general rule, occupancy standards limiting tenants to 2 people per bedroom do not violate fair housing laws, though this may not be true in all cases. However, rules that limit the number of children per housing unit instead of the total number of people per housing unit are discriminatory. In reviewing occupancy cases, HUD or the Vermont Human Rights Commission considers the size and number of bedrooms and other special circumstances. Note that receipt of public assistance includes Section 8 vouchers. It is illegal in Vermont to advertise apartments as not Section 8 approved or will not accept Section 8. Landlords must allow rent payments from housing assistance programs and must allow Section 8 inspection. Based on membership in a protected class, it is illegal for a landlord to refuse to rent to you, make housing unavailable, set different terms, conditions, or privileges for a rental, or steer someone of a protected class to a different neighborhood or type of unit. And lastly, it is illegal for a landlord based on membership in a protected class to refuse to make reasonable accommodations if necessary for a disabled person to use the housing. Also, it is illegal for a landlord to make, print, or publish any notice, statement, or ad that indicates a preference, limitation, or discrimination, and to coerce, intimidate, threaten, or interfere with you in your home, or for filing or supporting a discrimination complaint. There is a difference between discrimination and illegal discrimination. It's perfectly legal to refuse to rent to someone because of poor references or bad credit. Landlords can have different rules or practices because of behavior, but not for membership in any protected classes. For example, they can't say that children are not allowed to run in the hallways, but can say that no one is allowed to run in the hallways. Some fair housing law comes up more once you already live somewhere, such as those meant to protect people with disabilities. Disability covers physical and mental impairments, as well as being in recovery from drug or alcohol addiction. A person is considered to have a disability if any one or more of the following three criteria applies. 1, a person has a physical or mental condition or disease that substantially limits one or more life functions, such as walking, talking, breathing, seeing, hearing, self-care, paying bills, etc. 2, a person has a record of having such an impairment, such as receipt of SSI, SSDI, etc. 3, a person is considered by others to have such an impairment. Reasonable modification means a physical change to a building. If renting from a private landlord, the tenant is expected to pay for the modifications and to remove them when they leave. Often there are grants to help with this payment through the Vermont Council on Independent Living and others. Often in subsidized housing, the housing provider will pay. An example of an unreasonable request would include an elevator in a 4-unit older home. Examples of reasonable requests: a stair chair in a 4-unit home, flashing smoke or carbon monoxide detectors, widening doorways, accessible shower, grab bars, ramps, etc. Reasonable accommodation means a change to a rule, policy, or practice. Examples include accommodation from a no pet policy for an assistance animal, change from a designated parking spot to one that is closer to an entry, accommodation from a no criminal background policy if a person has a criminal record that is tied to an addiction and the person is in recovery. Other examples include a person with extreme social anxiety is afraid to enter the rental office and requests that they be allowed to mail their rent check. A person requests an extra set of keys so their aide has access to the premises. And lastly, a person with a cognitive disability requests extra time to examine a lease or other documents before signing. Sometimes your rent is tied to your income, which is why when 2 people live somewhere, they may pay twice the rent as one person, but not if the second person is medically necessary. Only family members who are financially obligated to the resident must include their income in the guidelines. In most cases, this includes only parents and spouses. Call Vermont Legal Aid or the Vermont Human Rights Commission if you feel you have been discriminated against in housing. If you are unsure, call CVOEO's Fair Housing Program. We can help you decide if you are facing discrimination and what to do about it. It can be hard to prove discrimination, so Legal Aid has a program where it sends out fair housing testers to help make a case that a landlord is being discriminatory. They will send out 2 applicants with very similar applications, but one will be from a protected class and one will not. You can volunteer to be a tester during your housing search and you will get a cash stipend for every completed test. Call the Legal Aid number if you are interested. Fair housing complaints are sent to Vermont Legal Aid, Vermont Human Rights Commission, and/or HUD. Vermont Legal Aid provides legal advice, investigates complaints, performs testing, and represents individuals and organizations in court and before state agencies, housing authorities, municipal governments, and the legislature. Vermont Human Rights Commission mediates disputes, provides information and referrals, and enforces fair housing laws. Here's an example for you to think about. Alex calls on an apartment to rent. The The landlord agrees to meet him at the apartment, which is just across town, in 15 minutes. Alex leaves work, shifts from his wheelchair to his car seat, lifts the wheelchair into the car, drives across town with minutes to spare, and is ready to greet the landlord when they arrive. The landlord greets him politely, but tells him the apartment is already taken. What might Alex be wondering? First, Alex could try talking to the landlord by saying something like, "I'm surprised, can you explain further?" and see if the landlord is willing to engage in conversation. Next, Alex could contact Vermont Legal Aid or the Human Rights Commission to discuss the situation and plan next steps, which might include filing a complaint. Thank you for viewing. Please reach out with any questions via our tenant hotline at 802-864-0099 or email at vttenants@cvoeo.org. This workshop video was produced by CVOEO's Vermont Tenants program. Narration by Karen Ames, Housing Education Coordinator.